this game.
So what?
Yeah,
I don't need
160
nothing.
days on
anything.
RuneScape.
Just
Me.
a bunch of time. I got 12 years on WoW.
Test 1, 2. Oof.
12
Test
years.
1, 2.
Possible to have 12
Settings. What map, guys? What map?
Test 1, 2.
Route 66.
Test 1, 2.
Alright, I like Route 66.
Okay, so hopefully I am louder than most of the game.
Well, that's what I thought Bagel said. This
I've missed
Or maybe. Looks like one.
I guess. Saying we'll see. We'll let
yeah, if
Okay. So on defense, we're running something that's seems okay. We're running an Orisa, we're running a Diva, and we're running double sniper. This is going to be a little bit awkward in that we don't have a ton of shield break, and Orisa functions almost best when we do have shield break. With like a Hog or a Junkrat to complement. The Hanzo's fine, the Widow is fine-ish. But like these are two adaptations that swap off of the traditional anti-dive setup. As such, this is kind of really vulnerable to dive in general. Without the damage or the CC or displacement that like a Hog can provide or a Junkrat can provide, you have to be a bit more careful. The Widow's likely fine, but like the Orisa suffers for it. If Orisa is forced to be on point to contest Cart, she can be just kind of charged at. She doesn't have peel in that regard. So her time on an objective is limited, let's say. But still, fine comp. Requires a few things and an understanding of heroes. So like in this sort of composition, Grape can't play super aggressive into the enemy backline. He can try to dislodge flankers. Like if someone flanks around here solo, he can come meet them. Or if someone's alone up here, he can kind of dislodge them, force them back. But he can't play into the enemy team because he doesn't have the support really to do so. He has no one diving with him, so his damage is minimal and probably ineffective if any of the enemy team decides to pocket the person that he's focusing. Conversely, on the other side, we have a Zarya Ryan double sniper comp. The supports here are just kind of constants. Zen Mercy is a very strong duo in this meta. You occasionally see Moira Lucio in more deathball tank-heavy compositions, or just Lucio in general and Koth, because getting to and from point and getting position for first fight is that first fight is just that important, rather. So this comp doesn't have a lot going for it either on this map. This map is at least first point and a decent amount of second point is dictated by a few high ground buildings, of which these two don't do well into. Which is why you might see like a Ryan Diva instead of a Ryan Zarya, or you see like a Winston Diva to contest high ground and really open up the map. Because right now the Ryan Zarya is kind of like confined to like this sort of trackway, which is fine, except you can actually, as an Orisa or Reinhardt, just like stand right here, essentially, on the edge and actually contest the payload as it goes by. And there's another spot over here you can do the same. So like the Ryan Zarya has problems actually being effective here, especially in a duel of snipers here, where they're just going to be playing up and around you.
if
So
it's not working.
if I recall, though, Grape is going to feed mech horrendously here. It's going to linger way too long, and it's going to be the beginning of everything. So this initial hook up here is not the greatest. If they were running dive here, and you probably don't know because I don't think it's been communicated and it hasn't been 15 seconds, that using this hook here means that they get to come on to you immediately and probably force you back, down, and maybe even killed.
Also running double sniper.
So right now, like Grape and everyone else has right to kind of back up and kind of reset now that you've done your scouting, you see what this is, but that's not what we do.
No, this is gonna be
We're going to use all of our matrix here. Then we're going to be discorded, and we're just going to get storm arrowed to down. We actually boost into the enemy team, and at this point we're dead.
Okay.
Oh shit! They melted.
Oh, you're down. Yeah.
Like that's just really disrespectful. So we're still kind of in, like, there's 3 phases to a fight, right? 1, 2, 3. There's approach. Approach is when both teams are kind of feeling each other out. It's where a lot of snipers try to get picks. It's where Junkrat is spamming, where fire rockets are just kind of just thrown into an area rather at a target. That's the approach. So right here, we were in the middle of the approach. Neither team is really looking to fight for the objective here. We were just kind of into each other just to see what's up. And we lost a very valuable resource in D.Va Mech during the approach phase, and that can actually just straight lose us fights. I think it loses us this fight in the long run. I can't quite recall. And then, second is initiation. Initiation. If I had a tablet and a pen, I could write this a bit easier. So second phase is initiation, where teams are actually committing to the fight. This is generally done around corners, because that's where shield tanks like to hold. It is also done in and around the objective where it wants to be. For this map, initiation takes place usually on the other side of this corner here, or somewhere along the street. Anywhere between like this billboard here to the back here is where initiation happens on this map, after an extended poke phase the entire way through. And last is cleanup. Cleanup. Approach is where you try not to let your plans get foiled by taking too much damage or burning too many resources before the initiation phase, where you actually attempt to accomplish your objective. And then on cleanup, if you've won, you try to kill the rest of the teammates of the people you've killed, the rest of the enemies to collect ult charge. People get healed back up, people start planning for the next fight. Cleanup phase is important in that it's also kind of like mid-fight. If you know like their hog has used breather or hook, you should probably kill him in this point before he gets those cooldowns back up again and can change a fight. Or maybe Winston Bubble's a bad example of this, but like Zarya Bubble, knowing when it's down or not is important in this cleanup step, because if she lingers too long, she gets to live longer, which means she has more ult charge for the next fight. So we're going to see a lot of times we fail in this phase. We're just going to fail an approach. We're going to not actually contest the point. And we're going to lose resources in the meantime. So we get a pick here. That's cool. But it's kind of even because D.Va's not doing anything right now. And the payload's not being contested. So like, if you actually want to leverage D.Va right now, the half character that she is, we need to contest here, essentially. I don't know if that's the correct play, but right now this pick doesn't mean anything, because he's going to be essentially back before this fight even happens. So that ult doesn't do anything, but it's all good. It might have gotten us the Rhine shield. So Rhine's shield is down. Grape is still too close. He's been kind of just like lingering in the path of the payload without actually contesting it for a while, trying to build. He might have been better to just like walk up here or like get high ground or something. Instead, the Zarya just kind of walks on him. He dies trying to get his mech out. Okay, so we've let the payload go past the point where we could just kind of contest it from high ground, or at least the first point, because there's another one back here once again. And we haven't really accomplished anything for it. Their Hanzo is back. And so now we're disadvantaged because we're down our Grape Ape. And we're not really set up for the next fight. So these two are split from their healers tremendously thanks to the pressure here. What you could do instead is just leave the Widow and maybe Zen on high ground to like make sure these guys don't have anywhere to go over here. And then take the fight on to point with the remaining members, because they are split, even though you are down in numbers. We kind of do that, but like we still haven't like we're like trying to hit them from this obtuse fucking angle when there's no other angle that we're even firing in the mat. So the Ryan can just hold shield here and we get nothing accomplished, right? We can kind of see it reflected in ult charge. It's been like a minute in. Our closest is 70 on Hanzo, who builds ult really fast. So we haven't done very much. We wasted our new shield here. We wasted another shield here. So by putting our shield here, we're saying we want to hold this space just behind it. But we don't. We kind of want to like hold this corner and just be pocketed. So our Iris is going to get blown up as soon as she stands on point.
We need to contest right here. We gotta drop. They're gonna take it for free.
So he uses golden, but now she finds herself in the middle of 5 people without support. Their Widow gets 2. Genji comes back.
We needed to get on payload. We just really watched them.
Grape comes back just in time to feed another 750 ult charge to the enemy team. This will be a consistent theme.
I died early, which was kind of shit.
Yeah, but I think we were still tied at that point. We shouldn't have just totally rolled over like that.
Okay. So they have both support ults, they just used walls. You should know that since they charged your one dude and they swung a bit, that their Rhine is close-ish to Grav. We're not really looking at anything. Maybe Bongo next fight. Bongo builds pretty fast now. But they still have walls.
Got discorded and went for cover, and then like I turn around and they're just all on the.
What was that?
I like got discorded and went for cover, and then like I turn.
What the fuck? Is that a spectator glitch? Do you see that? Am I the one who saw that? Hey, watch the Widow's gun. Watch where she's aiming. You ready?
I like got discorded.
And then suddenly it's just like flicks up. I assume that's a spectator glitch. This guy's not hitting shots enough for it to matter. Okay. So we're regrouping.
We want to try and hold
Not with
high.
this comp, no.
I overextended at the start. That was kind of the issue here. We fell off sync because of that. I'm gonna go on this Widow. She's looks like she's going on the roof or near the side over here where
Alright, so Grape shutting down the flank and correctly identifying that the Widow is further to her right seems fine. People aren't communicating that though, so I'm pretty sure someone saw the Widow hook up, but no one's communicated it. Boat mode is in an okay spot. Might become more dangerous as people float around. People up here seem fine. Widow hooks away. And then boat mode kind of feeds in. It's still kind of the approach phase here.
Discord Zarya on the ground. Zarya personal.
So if you jump in like this into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, 6 people, they should just kill you. None of your team is in any position to help you. Mercy can't fly to you because that kills her. Both your snipers haven't been getting picks, so they haven't been effective right now. And you don't even have like the Zen orb because you've been line of sighting him. So this is just a whole bunch of ult charge just gone.
Oh, good job on the ring.
Thank you for killing that Ryan. He was coming right at me.
So you guys actually lost 1.5 people right now, essentially. They have the ults, I think, to kind of swing this back. But it doesn't really matter.
That Hanzo.
Hanzo on the roof.
Coming up top with it.
Not careful.
Mercy's low. Zen's low.
Widow's on the high ground.
Yep, Widow's high left.
They're both
Widow's-
high.
Up top.
I'm just gonna win this one slowly.
Widow's high left. Hanzo's on the roof.
He's right side.
Hanzo
Yeah, I was gonna
outside.
say we need that.
Our D.Va once again is gonna kind of boost in the enemy team. This one is a bit more permissible because you have some support and you're in the air where the enemy team can't reach you.
Okay.
It's a bit better.
We
Hanzo on the
But they could still very much turn on you if you take this pathing. If you leave like the safety of this, like you can just kind of get melted.
are one of you.
And you walk into the enemy team and so you lose back.
Get your tracer right now.
Look down if you can. I don't know about that ult.
Blow both support ults, which is rough. But like, at no point are we transitioning away from like the approach phase of the fight. Because I know you. It says you're on defense, but you're really on attack. These guys control this payload. You need to dislodge them from it. So in a sense, you are actually attackers. You're just kind of like giving ground without committing to a full fight.
Okay, that's a
Right here,
else, guys.
until Grape does. And does he lose mech again?
Snipers.
No,
He's low.
not this one.
He's down.
Alright, now we gotta push.
Mercy's low.
Alright.
We're fine, no more ults.
Alright.
Sorry, I was just trying to keep you
We
up.
have
And
ults? Yeah, we do.
That's alright.
Oh,
I'm moving forward to the
we
corner.
turn it around. Seems nice. Both support ults to do that though.
I haven't been able to really keep orb on you, dude.
You can stand up here?
What? You didn't know you could walk around on that roof?
Okay, Orion's positioning's fine. We have Sniper not playing behind shield for some reason. Like, this is a little bit too far forward. You can either be at an off angle so that you're unlikely to be spotted and you have a new sightline from your Hanzo, who's essentially just like back here and you're almost on that line. Same with your Orisa. You can either be behind shield and be safe, or you can be on a flank and be safe from not being the object of most focus. Instead, I think Widow just dies here. Yeah.
Left.
Shit, I'm gonna go.
Okay. Boosting in here will also lose you your mech if you're not careful. I realize the Hanzo is like looks kind of free, but like if his Mercy reacts at all, you can very quickly lose mech.
Are you feeling Genji?
Like, look at that.
Or,
And you're going. You gotta be careful.
You can, but I feel like we need something to help break up the back line.
And you guys have just now lost like 4 people
Yeah, I'm down.
before the fight without an actual fight.
Headshot.
You've just entirely given them all this ult charge. So Grape is now boosting not to safety.
Looks like I am by myself, and my mech's broken again.
Yeah,
Alright, they got it.
Yeah,
Alright, we gotta go full dive.
it's a lot of ult charge gone. Like, they didn't need their combo.
We're getting destroyed
Just
by
the
these
problem.
snipers.
This is why I was so surprised that you guys ended up holding this, because they essentially come into third point with 6 ults and 4 minutes left to your 1 ult, and I think you guys are swapping around. Like, they absolutely
We
flubbed
gotta do
this.
something we can test them at least.
alright, well, we gotta group up.
Tracer.
Orion, careful. You're up there with
A close fight is good. Close fight is very good. If you know that they have these ults banked, you need to get as many of them out as possible before you no longer have the room to contest. So contest as early as possible, knowing that you're likely going to lose the fight.
well, not really. Alright, I guess that works.
You could have also put that like behind something more than your shield to make it harder to
Widow top right.
deal with. But we're still kind of giving ground here.
She's Discord.
They have 2 on payload.
Coming for me. Okay. Widow's dropped. She's now left.
Get her.
Was a really bad grab.
Got a grab in the back.
I don't know why that happened. That Zarya's low. They're all pretty low.
Reinhardt's low.
So the Reinhardt has had poor shield management in that he like walks on you while you're just spamming shield and then nothing happens behind him. Instead of using the payload as cover and saving his shield, he's let your Orisa just kind of spam into it. And I think your maybe Genji or Zen also spam into it. That kind of saves you here, honestly.
Yep.
Zarya?
Mercy now. Mercy.
Then we start
Mercy
taking
now.
the fight.
Mercy one.
Mr. Mercy, Zarya next.
Maybe we can get
Get
to
the
this Zen.
Zarya.
So like if instead they had used either their support ults to sustain their Rein and push the Rein past your shield into a shatter, or into a grav combo, it would have been much more difficult for you guys to hold this.
I didn't realize I was that low.
Okay. Zarya
I
got
don't.
But Grape is like consistently losing this mech.
Reinhardt's low. You got him
He
grabbed.
boosts into them, he aggresses, which seems fine.
Mercy half.
Alright,
Mercy one.
Mr. Mercy, Zarya next.
He's discorded.
Maybe we can get
Get
to
the
this Zen.
Zarya.
Alright, coming forward to mid
He takes a crit from
I didn't
Hanzo
realize I was that low.
and boosts in without a path of retreat. Okay.
Alright, well.
Grape safe, you can use like your first half of booster to like bully and then the second half of it to like leave. Get to a high ground or something.
I wanted to get back.
None more.
Grabs down.
No, that's feeding.
Got a Winston.
I thought you guys would have lost this too. They actually swapped off the Rein. They swapped off Shatter. That's right, I forgot about that. What do they have here? Was a Widow, was it? Okay. Well, they have both support ults, and suddenly they're up 2 members in this
Got a
fight.
Hanzo right on me. They're just rushing shield.
3
Yeah,
members.
they're just pushing up.
4 members. Boatmode should die here. The fact that Mercy doesn't die. Mercy dies here. Okay. So how do you guys win this?
Alright, let's back off, regroup. We can
Oh.
for a second try.
You guys randomly get the Tracer from the Diva Bomb. That's a... I'm pretty sure that's a bad Diva Bomb. You're in essentially a 1v6 scenario. They should be able to kill you or farm your mech in this scenario, and it just so happens that everyone both backs away and you get a Tracer. If I was in this situation as the enemy team, I'm looking to just like dragon one side of spawn, essentially, and look to use either of my support ults to sustain my tanks in fight because neither of them have their ults. If I'm defenders, I'm swapping off Orisa. I don't think Junkrat does well against dive in general. Like, I don't think you'll be landing enough shots to really make it worthwhile. And the goal is to kind of just stall here. I think Natten makes it work, though. Ends up building a couple tires before the end of this game. But I'll probably just go Winston Diva and try to stall, because we're at a disadvantage right now.
Orion, can you go, Reinhardt or Winston?
I need it.
Okay, as soon as you guys blow trance, there's a timer on the game, essentially. You blowing trance means you need to get something done within the, 8 seconds that trance lasts. Because if you don't, at the end of your trance, they pop their trance. And when they pop their trance, they get to be aggressive instead. With almost total impunity. Notice how they have like all these ultimates that they're not really going to use effectively.
Get on cart. You guys were dying. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I will right after this.
Actually a pretty decent dragon.
I don't know.
But they just don't want to ult.
Discord Winston.
Keep it back low.
I need to on
Back
you.
up.
Discord Winston, he's low.
Winston low. Winston down.
Their supports, neither of their supports ulting for like 2 fights in a row throws them in this game.
Get this Mercy.
Tracer's left side. Hanzo
At this point they've lost the fight. They've lost their Diva mech, they've lost their Winston.
upper right.
They need to regroup. We don't need to ult anything else.
He's about half. Hopping away.
Tracer.
Hanzo's up top.
Good hold,
Get
guys.
that Hanzo yet?
Alright, now we have Tyre and Blade.
Okay, the Hanzo's got.
Blade might be hard to utilize here, but we do have Tyre.
Alright.
And Tyre's pretty good.
Alright, try not to go.
But they have time to like get these ults out, essentially. Their Winston dies again.
Push up, push up.
Okay, no one else can push up with you, Grape. You gotta be really careful not to feed another mech.
Alright, now we're even. Careful, guys.
Hanzo low.
Now we're down one.
Uh-huh. They just need to go, dude. Like, how don't they win off this?
Oh,
Winston pushing in hard. I'm alone on point.
Yep, you're alone on point.
I'll be back.
That's probably GG.
Once again, I would dragon one of the spawns, have the Winston just camp the other with his ultimate, and you just wouldn't be able to leave spawn.
I'm like 2% total.
rush
But they're not going to do that.
I just wanted to use this to try and hold it.
Boma got another trance. That's impressive.
Swing!
I pick Zen.
Woo!
Keep it next
I
low.
got Tracer.
You could have eaten that. He was close enough. It's not going to matter here because they like threw this fight, but like...
React to that quicker.
Eva? Alright, Discord Mercy, Discord Mercy.
So enemy team managed to use 4 ults in that, but they used it after the fight was essentially decided,
I don't know
instead
who
of
someone's Discord.
using it to decide the fight.
One. I didn't get
Good job.
That is to say, they used it in
Alright.
the cleanup phase of the fight, rather than the initiation.
from
Oh, okay,
point.
we're gonna have Valve. Alright. Yeah.
Like, you can use these support ults aggressively,
They switched off double sniper.
and often you should.
Switched off
They have
any
Winston
sniper,
now?
actually. Yeah, so they don't have any snipers, so just stay together. Make them come to cart.
Someone's coming right.
Probably
What I have?
Doomfist. I think it's Doomfist coming right. Watch
Yep.
the flank.
Tracer.
Tracer feeds.
Slow, nice.
Watch
Tracer isn't too early. They don't have good focus.
Winston.
Someone's low on the left.
Discord.
It's a good shatter.
Winston.
Even if you only get one, it seems fine.
You got my shield.
Get Diva.
And you guys win this.
We're fine. Get this Tracer. Genji next. Winston.
Eventually.
To the point. Shield.
You waited. I don't know.
Straight.
Okay, let's
Oh,
talk about attack.
You know what you gotta do.
We are running Widow Genji Dive into Double Sniper Orisa Diva. Okay, so they're running the exact same defense that we were in. And we are running a good comp into them. The problem here stems from the fact we overcommit cooldowns. We kind of jump the gun into the initiation phase instead of setting up a proper approach. So right now, no one's on payload.
Alright.
We're now getting a scout out.
We're on the top
Seems
of the
fine.
there's a Widow back right. I'm gonna jump straight on gas station. Ready?
What's the plan here? Like, even if everyone who's mobile follows you, Winston, how are you going to win 3v6?
Yeah.
Go in.
Before he even gets there, he's at half health. Your Mercy is committing to flying with you, which is actually kind of bad.
Mercy. I got pooped off. I'm getting this.
And it actually gets your Mercy killed. Your Mercy's the first to die because she follows you in. I'm not sure what you saw there. Instead of just people there, and you're like, we can kill them. That's just a lot of hubris, really. You jumping up here and hard committing like that is you fighting for like this distance to this distance of on the payload. So you're not really getting anything from that. Most everything up to here is free, essentially. And you just need to avoid spam and sniper sightlines in order to just get that. And the real fight comes from like here to here, essentially. So you've essentially halted the payload 20 seconds into the game for no reason. What could you have done differently is... Well, if you were keen to jump up, you could have landed like right here, used the billboard to like line of sight, tase them a bit, drop bubble, and then retreated to low ground out of their sightline instead of chasing them across. Don't want to do this. You did give like a minor countdown. If Diva was closer behind, maybe you can get away with that a bit more readily, but you have to realize that you're not getting a kill here against any semi-competent team, and that this jump, if you're to do it, is only for pressure, and to buy space for your Widowmaker, essentially, so she can be where she wants to be. And so you're going to use resources, drop down, get rehealed, and then maybe recontest once the payload is further along. So we just kind of blow it there.
Step forwards down, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up.
Yeah, I'm out of mech. And the Widow picked
I
me
was
up.
like, wait, what?
I don't...
Widow's in the back.
Oh, we got Hanzo above us. Hanzo high
boy.
ground, careful. Alright, yeah, they're running double sniper again.
Yep.
Okay, we use bubble here for no reason, essentially. It's not covering our Widow to see where she seems to be looking. It's kind of wasted cooldown.
That was good for that, so...
What
Almost
sniper?
with it.
Widow's dead.
Can we? I don't have
Alright,
shield
Widow's
for 9.
Widow's
down.
down.
Push on.
I don't have shield for 9, so it's gonna be hard for me.
Okay,
to
so get on cart, push that.
get in cart, push cart a bit.
Push
Ready?
cart,
I'm
hold
gonna
it,
jump.
and then- Yeah.
Go for it.
Alright, you're taking too much poke here, man.
Yeah. What happened here?
Widow's down.
Push on.
I don't have shield for 9, so it's gonna be hard.
Watch the Diva
Get on
health.
cart, push that.
Get in cart,
What is he
push cart
eating?
a bit.
Push
Ready?
cart,
I'm
hold
gonna
it,
jump.
and then- Yeah.
Go for it.
Alright, you're taking too much poke here, man.
Yep.
There's just counter aggression here you pretty well. Like, even though Orion basically starts over here at like 200 health, Winston is still the first to die. You are up 1, so it's a bit more forgivable, but you're essentially losing these two in terms of damage when you jump up there each time, especially if their shield is there. So like the Widow pick originally was good, but you don't have like the means or the what's it called, the map position to really leverage it to more kills. So yeah, this seems kind of forced again. They're kind of waiting for a regroup, and you try to step up the aggression, which I understand, but it just backfires masterfully in your face. Like they burn through 500 Winston health, 600 Diva health before like you get through 200 health of theirs. Like, excuse me, what's going on?
Like I had to take Orb off.
That's just a really bad dive.
Mercy's half.
Wow, because she fell. I mean, he fell. That was really good.
Mercy's
And then we like jump back in, and we're gonna feed another 500 health.
Oh,
Discord Mercy.
Hey, Volt.
We're actually using cover now. That's good.
Take a sec.
Goes back.
On a
Mercy's
point.
solo. I'm gonna
Widow's
die.
back.
But we don't need to peek anything. We can just wait. We're getting payload. That's all we need.
Discord
Hanzo
Hanzo.
one.
Your job as Winston, as you go higher up, is less and less getting the kills yourself. It's like disruption almost. You're gonna take spaces up here using the billboard and your bubble to prevent them from like walking on the point. You're gonna jump up and then retreat to prevent them from looking at your Widowmaker. Stuff like that.
Oh, I'm so dead here. Oh my god.
Uh-oh.
Why
Yeah, we're
was
gonna
it-
die here.
I don't know.
Die or get out if you can.
I thought team was like the
Yeah.
bad awareness on
I
my
just
part.
died.
Actually, I don't entirely hate the Widow kind of staying on this flank. It is a little dangerous against the Diva and maybe against the Hanzo, but you can get a couple picks here and just kind of open up the map. Or you can spawn camp their Widowmaker and really make her fear for her life. Something
Alright,
you
well,
can
then
do.
res. When Grape comes back.
Alright, they use walls at 222, 223. You have walls of your own. Your options essentially are use walls to counter their walls so everyone has perfect information, or wait the 15 seconds for their walls to disappear, then use your walls to have the advantage. Instead, you kind of you end up peeking while their walls are up and you die here.
Oh, we don't have res either.
Shit.
Alright, well,
Alright,
we'll
I'm
have
back
it.
up. Where you at, Volt? Or Grab. There you go.
Were we all here?
Nope.
Alright.
3. Walls were still up for 3 seconds.
Okay.
Okay.
Taking too much.
So instead of like going this way, because like this part of the point doesn't really mean any much anymore, if you guys had gone under and just kind of sat on point, or use your mobility cooldowns to get underneath of them, and push the payload further, you can force them to have to fight like essentially here, which means if they lose it there, then you cap, which is your ultimate goal in this. Instead, we're just gonna like we're ignoring this entirely.
We have to do something.
Look at this. Waste our entire matrix to get to here by the mini, and then what are we doing?
I'm gonna
And we have everyone trapped behind this rock.
see if I can get to the Zen.
Like, that's not sustainable. You're just going to eat spam from their two different sight lines until your healers can't compensate.
I'm just taking way
And now we dive in at this much health.
much.
We gotta go in.
Yeah, we just
How
gotta
do
go.
you feel about a Junkrat?
Let's go under tunnel. Let's go under tunnel.
Tunnel? Okay.
Because I am already out of mech.
It's a bad blade.
I'm down.
Reset.
Now, it could have been good if, like, we timed Winston aggression and dive with the blade and forced the trance out. Or used blade to force trance out and then committed our own, I don't know, Valk Winston aggression afterwards. But we're just staggering ourselves here.
We're going, yeah, okay.
As soon as
You want me to go to
you burn
shield?
trance, just leave.
No, we're gonna go under tunnel.
There's no point trying to kill it unless you're
Go
nano
on the,
boosted or something.
top side.
Alright.
Sounds of
Alright.
I'm
nice.
gonna use,
Down.
I'm gonna use sights
Looks like
on
Owen's
the
down.
Wait, we're going
Yeah.
up?
Yeah, let's go up.
We're
Up,
wasting a lot of time.
through.
Let's go.
We can hop across that way. And our
We have
healers can go to the cart.
It's
This guy's
taking-
feeding.
It's taking too much time deciding what to do. We
Oh.
have to do
Yeah.
something.
We're going.
Let's go.
Hanzo's out here.
That's a failed jump. That sucks. Team wasn't with you.
Missed the jump.
Zen's with you. Zen's dead.
Devault.
Oh, homie, you were. Oh,
It's bad jumps. I'm not sure. Like, who are you trying to?
Alright, good.
Alright, if you're going to play Winston for the ultimate, you need to, like, bop them jump to chase and then bop them again to like juggle them. It's something definitely to work on, but see how they're just like burning through your ultimates? This ultimate isn't done well because your initial target Zen gets out for free. You're disrupting the Mercy, and she's close to dying. But no one else is really helping you, and this fight is kind of spread now.
Then
And so our jumps, it doesn't seem like we're jumping where we want to go.
yeah, the hunt
Now we're stuck just kind of tickling people, and we're going to slowly die.
just jumped on me. And died.
And we've lost. And we've lost this fight. Just leave.
Oh yeah.
Said we commit bomb to it.
Fuck all.
Come back to Mega.
Next back. Shibongo's in a very visible spot. We're committing both support ults, but we don't have enough people to really aggress.
Top going.
Yeah.
There we are.
Should not have won.
I'm back. I'm gonna jump on this Widow on top.
We committed both support ults, but we didn't cross this threshold, so they got to safely sit on this side while we sat on this side, and we just kind of stared at each other like there was a giant DMZ in the way.
Zen's low.
We get the Widow, that's cool.
Oh, nice. Okay. Diva.
We get that guy.
Forces ult.
Ooh, that's a good ult. Hudson jumps in, is going to die for it. I think they turn this.
Make sure we're not
Okay,
scanning.
Mercy. Discord Mercy. Discord Mercy. Okay. Hanzo on roof. Okay, I'm dead.
Yeah, we're all down.
Well, shit.
I know things are too late. Yeah, okay. So the problems on Dorado, let's go over them again. On defense, we gave up a lot of ground. We weren't really playing payload too well. Our off tank was, for all intents and purposes, misunderstanding his role. He thought he was like a backline assassin, as if like he was playing with a full dive team. Instead, he needed to realize he's like an anti-flanker and, well, an anti-flanker and high ground control bot. And then ultimately the enemy team kind of just stopped using their ults wisely to win the game on third point. Where on defense here, we never got a good dive off. We didn't look for our dive triggers, which are, one, if a target is out of position, you dive that target. Two, if a target is in good position but can't be peeled for, you dive that target, regardless of who it is. Like, if a Roadhog is out of position, you dive him, because you'll force him to use his heal and force the enemy team to commit resources to keep him up. Similarly, if a Zenyatta is in a good position, but his Mercy's not around, then he's vulnerable, because he is likely to die. And third point, people who can escape or will die during the dive, which is important if you're trying to assess whether a Winston or a Diva is a good target. If they've used their jump, yeah, they can be a good target. If they haven't, then it's kind of pointless, because they're just going to leap away. Same with a Tracer. If a Tracer's low on blinks or it doesn't have recall, that's good to know. If she has those things, then it's not going to be important. So we weren't selecting good times to dive, and we weren't essentially playing around the objective. We were instead pressing shift into the enemy team and hoping we came out on top, instead of isolating a target or allowing or playing the map to force rotations to isolate targets. So if instead we line of sight them until they drop down, then we get to use Winston and Diva mobility to jump whoever's left on the high ground split from the team, or to catch them in transition. Okay.
How are you guys feeling tonight? How'd you feel with that first game against those guys? What do you think?
Excuse me.
Kind of difficult for me.
Let me get
as,
some
like,
water.
a
Be right
sniper.
back.
Okay.
Especially because
yeah,
there's two
same.
of them, it's
Do
like
you-
really hard to
that
keep
Widow's
track of
very
both of
good.
them.
Do you guys want to try to? Well, okay. So I don't know if they're definitely gonna have a Widow, but do you want to try to go with that like battle of attrition thing and whittle them down, like Junkrat Pharah kind of crap? I'm confident.
I don't feel.
No, I know what you're saying. Basically, the Junkrat Oni is just to drop the right.
So like we're
Sorry, a Diva.
Okay. So let's discuss some game theory as well. here on this map. As it pertains to this map anyway. You can apply this to other maps. Most notably like 2 CP maps or some payload to an extent, but it mostly applies to hybrid and 2 CP. So, whether or not... So for first point hybrid and first point 2 CP assault, the attackers have an advantage in more than just spawn location. They also have sort of the light... I don't know how to word this in a way that like it might stick in your mind. They have the privilege of choosing their comp last, essentially. Which is to say, they can step out the door, be like, oh, we picked comp A. Or the enemy team picked comp A. Let's swap all of our heroes to composition B. It deals very well with comp A. They don't even need to take a fight. They can just do some preliminary scouting, walk straight back into spawn, swap everything, and have the perfect counter for whatever you're throwing at them. That's because their spawn is so close that they have time to do that before you have time to go and do that yourself. And that's true every 2 CP point and most hybrid maps. Numbani might be close because it's kind of even, so neither team really gets to do it. So, what does that mean as the defenders? That means if you run something very specialized, like if instead of this they ran a Brigitte, this was Brig. You could take one look at this and say, well, they don't have any hit scan, and they're looking to just run at us. So what we could do is prevent them from ever doing that. And so we'll swap to like a Winston. We'll swap to triple DPS, why not? Stay on Widow, stay on Junkrat. We'll swap this to Pharah. We'll play why not, a Zen Mercy. Here we're just going to spam them out with our Junkrat and our Pharah. Our Pharah will be permanently pocketed, so it will be uncontestable by anyone but the D.Va, who's unlikely to kill. We're going to spam them out with Junkrat, we're going to wear their shield down. They'll have no choice but to charge into us. But most of our DPS are playing high ground where they can't be charged, and our Winston will save jump and just leap away to the same high ground for protection. And we'll just wait until we either get picks, or we build barrage, or we build tire. That's something you get to do as the attackers here. So, the defenders are forced to run a very, very specialized comp that can answer any number of things. Not a composition that you can look at it instantly and go, oh, if we switch these two heroes, suddenly they can't do anything. For that reason, I don't like this defending comp. It's kind of really dependent on a couple things. Junkrat has to get a ton of value because it's not... it's the only real DPS in this comp. And yeah, D.Va and Zarya conditionally can output a lot of DPS. But then again, as I'm saying, it's kind of conditional. It's conditional on a tank battle to build Zarya's ult. If you come in with dive here, the Rein is kind of useless. The Zarya is very useless because she won't be able to build ult charge. And you'll leave just kind of this guy to just kind of fend for himself. If you were to play a style that just takes these high ground positions and plays away from this team, what do? Not very much. They have a D.Va to jump up to contest you, but she can't stay there 1v6, as we saw on Route 66. That will lead to her feeding. Defenders also have a problem here in that the attackers don't have to win every fight. They only have to win one fight. So they have all the time in the world to just sit up here. They're in almost no rush to get anything done if they're executing their game plan. Granted, they're not building control percentage, so they actually have to be progressing towards some end goal, like Tire, like Barrage, like getting a pick with Widowmaker, but it's kind of the price you pay. They get to choose when to engage the attackers. That's their prerogative. Attacker's prerogative. That's the word I was looking for. So when do we decide to engage here? We're holding shield up for a while. We're not even eating spam right now. So our goal here in my opinion. We have a Widow and a Junkrat. They're running a Junkrat. For that reason, we want to stay away from Hotel, because he's going to come out this way. What we should do, in my opinion, is use Zarya Bubba and Rhine Shield to get through this choke here at gate. May not do that. To get through this gate, we'll rotate around statue, and we'll push in following the second round of Zarya bubbles to make sure Zarya has the most energy possible. Then we get to push in from this side with a refreshed Rhine Shield because we've been resting it, and 2 fresh Zarya bubbles, and around like maybe 60 energy. With that, we will get to 100 energy with our next bubble because they're spamming into us, and then that will allow our Rhine to rest shield until about here, and then he starts to push shield down, and suddenly we can bash into their tanks. We could also play it a little bit slower if we wanted to. Use the same strategy to come around and build Zarya high energy, and then wait for their shield to fall or for them to be forced back into this corner, because we have good sightlines as the Widow's rotating around here to the high ground to force them off a point. And the Junkrat spam will naturally force them to have to rest shield at some point or risk it breaking, and the Zarya damage on shield will force it to break. Now, if our Zarya doesn't have energy, we can just relax. But if their Zarya fucks up bubble and is at low energy, suddenly that's an advantage that we have over them. That is pressure not on our Reinhardt's shield, that is pressure not on our Reinhardt period, and we can swing the fight just solely off of that. Alternatively, you can realize that this team doesn't really have a hit scan and that Afar will slowly force them to retreat down in this corner. So the typical defense pattern starts with, they start here, you either push into them, in which case they take a fight immediately, or you rotate around here, in which case this shield is forced to rotate back as you have a wider angle of attack and they don't have natural cover to hide behind for when the shield gets low. So they'll end up line of sighting you in kind of motel as you creep onto point, and then before they contest, they need to sort of regain footing onto point. Hopefully, for the defenders, you've expended more resources to get yourself here than they have to push in. And I just took a screenshot for no reason. Okay. So, but as I said, the first I would do here is to rotate around statue using Zarya bubbles, go in on the second bubble, rotate Widow around to like maybe this high ground and push in and force them back into this corner where you're all facing one direction. Well, they're all facing you on point, and you have DPS at different angles firing at them. We don't do that. Instead, we're kind of just lingering here. We don't have like a clear plan. It's been 15 seconds, and we're just gonna kind of stay here.
I took some damage.
Alright, they don't have a hit scan though, so...
Like, our Widow's not rotating. So our Widow is only able to see like this part of point, and they're easily able to like line of sight you by just not being there. She is buying you some space, and they aren't contesting you for this gate, so just take the space or walk into them. You can choose either. I wouldn't recommend walking into them while your Widow's way the fuck back here. You really need to wait for your Widow to rotate in order, if you want to take this route, because you want her to cover. In fact, you could have her up here when you rotate, and that's probably preferred. Well, I guess she starts over here, and then rotates here once you're actually pushing in, so the diva just doesn't have a free line of sight on her. But, like, so none of your team is creating space that matters right now. That's kind of the problem. So we're just in, like, in this extended Pokemon. Like, this is Grape's second round of bubbles, and we haven't done anything with it. Okay, we're going right. We're going right. Not everyone's going right, but we're going right. Okay. We didn't take this opportunity to rest shield, so their spam is eating right into our shield the entire time. Our Zarya is well charged. Their Zarya is probably also well charged. Our Widow hasn't rotated yet. So right now it's not looking, we're not really putting pressure on. And that's kind of the problem with these engages. They're much slower than they need to be. If I can maybe show you time on King's Row where we played. Because we play on King's Row like all the time. I'm gonna push the hell into them. These are both. Was I Farah here? I was. That's probably McCree there. Let me just show you what we do on Kings Row. This is defense. Let's skip to offense. What's that enunciation? Is that what I did? We get rolled there. And I'm going Junkrat here.
Widow stop left.
Alright, so we're coming out with... This is going to be Zenyatta. Tunky's just a troll. So look how long it takes for us to just start actually being on point. We immediately call out what they have. We already know in the pregame that we're going to rotate around statue. I'm going to be spamming shield on approach. We're building Zarya charge. I jump immediately to high ground to force them away from the no cover that is on point. And then we play a little ring around the rosy here, and I think I die. But my guy's on point already. And 21 seconds in, essentially, is we've begun the fight. Over here, we haven't gotten a push in, and it's been like twice that. Said we lose shield. Meanwhile, over here, I think we get res. Do I die here? Just kind of force them back. I think we lose this. Yeah, we end up winning it. I end up dying over here, but like I'm pressuring them the entire time. I get rezzed. And I'm not a good Junkrat. But you see how I'm forcing them to just take like alternate angles the entire way? I think I'm gonna die here again. Yeah, I'm gonna die here again. But we force them all into this back pocket where they don't have a lot of control over space, and we just slowly, incrementally just take over the map. Here we're not really doing that. We swapped to Farah. The Junkrat on the flank is not being properly dealt with. We've lost this fight already. Okay, I don't know if we touched the point in the entire 1 minute push. I don't know what our Farah is doing here, by the way. Listen to his excuse, too.
I got trickled.
Why are you dying there, man?
No, I was kind of stuck because I knew they were looking at me, so then I tried to make them look away, but...
I knew they were looking at me, so I tried to make them look away. They weren't looking at you until you fired. And even if they were looking at you, they have no way to contest you if you're airborne, essentially. Not at that distance. You could have just left, or gone, or just pressed shift. But instead we get staggered late. Alright, and because we lost the first fight, they are going to have tire. Which means our next fight is fucked. And then the fight after that, they can probably use this, build another tire, or use this. Losing first fight in a death ball can be really rough sometimes.
We're waiting on a respawn and then...
Everyone's back. Look at the Junkrat spam not doing anything. Okay. They used amp, which is actually really bad for them. But we're just waiting here. We're not taking space. So either the tank needs to push in or push around to force these guys to rotate, or force the fight, or the Farah needs to do it because she's mostly uncontested. If the Farah stands up here, that will force the D.Va onto her. And then with a Mercy pocket, she gets away fine. But she, playing at this angle, isn't actually really controlling too much. If she plays closer or plays on the far end, you can force people back. She'll slowly do this. There she goes. And notice how they're all forced back here. We need to react to that pressure and actually go through.
We gotta watch the Junkrat to our left.
We're backing up still. We had them all essentially in this corridor, and we're not taking the space that they gave us.
We gotta somehow bait him out and then kill him.
We have to go in, we have to go in. We have people.
Watch tire.
They use tire. We back up. We get the pick.
Nice. Alright, let's push.
Let's go, 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 let's go. Where are you? What are we waiting for? There's tire. Tire's down at 2 of
Nice,
4.
Alright, let's push.
Going.
I'm taking damage.
Look at the pathing that our team is taking.
Okay.
Or lack of pathing our team is taking.
Alright, run shield low, run shield low.
Nice block.
Oh,
Push. No more ults.
After Tire, it takes us almost... It takes us 17 seconds to actually touch point. And we only have the confidence to touch point, it seems, if we all have Q.
Push.
push up, push up, push up,
I
push
died.
up. Diva behind, Diva behind.
Wait,
Discord
get the
Diva.
Diva?
My zeros.
Hanzo's down.
You gotta be more proactive. Even if it fails, maybe even if it's over aggressive, like at least you can learn why.
Can we push up?
See,
Couple
I
of us
mean,
push
see,
up?
yeah.
Like the Dorado,
Making space.
the Route 66 game was a lot of over aggression on the attack.
That's alright.
And here we see kind of the opposite of a very, very passive play. That was essentially our second push. And it took us until a minute 20,
Alright.
essentially, to affect it. Okay, we seem to be coordinating ults now. We have Grav and Farah Rocket. So, if we can get the Diva and a mech, then we can just kind of win this. Our Farah is not playing with the team, however.
Everyone up.
Alright, I got you.
So our Farah is taking the weird odd angle that she like kind of wants to. But now they have the Widowmaker in addition to the Diva, so it makes it harder for him to maintain that angle without much
Got it.
support.
They have a widow again? Okay.
Yep. Straight on top.
Alright, not probably swap to, I would say, sniper
In fact, our Farah is just kind of in the window,
if you want.
which is really predictable.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying just run back. Swap.
Ah, alright, they use their ult.
It's throwing.
Be careful as we back out a little bit.
Alright, that's a way.
Yep.
Not necessarily.
Uh,
It's behind us.
Oh,
Yep.
we're
well, it's down. You're not even.
We got a lot of ults.
Oh no, yeah.
Back off.
Okay, but you still have a good amount of ultimates yourself.
Wait, we can push up now. We can definitely get them. We have two of our tank ults.
Yeah,
We
what else
gotta
is
pick.
pressuring us? Push up, push up, push up. We need that shield.
Charge him back. Here.
Take to the corner.
Ult, I'm gonna do it.
Alright,
But
guys.
I'm worried about the Diva defense.
If you're worried about the Diva, you can just try like shooting it right into a wall, essentially. If you're not careful, they're gonna build shatter before you get this.
Widow's left. Okay.
She got
Down.
us. Okay.
So if you know the Widow's up here, hug the wall. Instead we don't, we just kind of ignore it. We just,
Yeah, we're pushing
we
payload.
like watch the Widow and then we get two shot.
I'm down.
Can we still win this from here? Well, we do have the ult to do it. It's a little bit risky to do it when we're down 2. But we could win this fight still. Instead we're just gonna kind of get wiped, which is fine.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like even now we kind of have our win condition still. We still have our tank ultimates alive. We still have Tire alive. A call could be made. I'm not saying it's the ideal one to win here, or we could just wipe here and then use it on next fight.
Alright, we either I want either again.
We got to initiate on them before they
I don't know who's
lose to us. That was another time of where the approach phase took so long that they got picks on it with their Widowmaker before we were properly able to initiate a fight.
swap, but we need one of these things.
I know that like it too.
You still have
I still have my ult.
Yeah.
Tank ults.
I still have my ult.
We lost 2 with the Diva top right.
alright, Naughton, can you switch to Genji or Tracer?
Widow's fine here. Tracer's gonna have a hard time, honestly. Like Soldier, there's no Zen for you to hit on. Diva and Soldier can make your life really rough. I wouldn't recommend Tracer here. Genji could work, but like Widow's just as fine, honestly. You could also hard commit to just like a whole bunch of shield pressure with like a Hanzo.
Whoever you're more
I'd say Hanzo. Hanzo's would be fantastic here.
As long as you can get up to her.
Back up a little bit. Seems fine.
I'm gonna ult when you guys get close to the fire.
Oh, they're high ground. Discord, somebody high.
That's our tire, right? I'm surprised we don't just grab here.
High ground.
Just grab anything.
Shield's
Alright,
low.
put your shield down, let it charge, let it charge.
I
We
got
got
Look how long it takes. Like, we got this pick. We get 2 picks. Bam. 148. How long does it take for us to cross this corner?
Shield's
Alright,
low.
put your shield down, let it charge, let it charge.
I
We
got
got
2.
2.
Go, go,
Let's go.
go.
Half the team's just like not walking forward. 5 seconds, just gone.
She's low. She's low. Go up there. Get her.
Ooh, we get
I got
Healed?
destroyed.
We're still fine.
Is Steve out of mech?
Yeah, we're still fine.
Get on the side.
Agree.
Zeph,
Diva.
I'm ulting.
behind. Jesus.
Not a great ultimate.
Diva's behind. Diva's behind.
Push up.
Go.
Things are just chaotic.
Pressure the shield.
So Grape right now is the most important member of the team. He is both the DPS and the tank in this instance. If you can break that shield, he will absolutely carry this fight and probably build another grab on top of that. They have nothing for him.
Run.
That-
Nice.
Don't go after the shield if you don't have to.
What is Grape doing? What the hell? Alright, so Grape kills this man,
Run.
that-
Nice.
reloads,
Don't go after the shield if you don't
and then just ignores the diva.
have to. I'm just gonna keep shooting it.
I'm so confused.
Heading back.
Yeah,
Diva's
park.
top,
Nice.
almost
Good
top.
job.
He would have had another grab.
I have
Run over.
self-shield too.
He needs to right click, just right click. Okay. Soldier on point lives
Park, guys. Come on.
an embarrassingly long amount of time.
Mercy next.
Mercy
Mercy.
resin.
Alright, push up here. We can take a lot of space here. Try to get people.
I don't know if we need to shatter right away here. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but to commit 2 ults to this is rough.
Sorry, I'm stuck.
Because we're getting this space for free, essentially.
Combo it.
Great shield. Keep pushing.
Oh shit, heal me?
Grape is too far forward.
Perfect.
-1. Up.
Grape needs to play with his Ryan instead of in front of him.
I have my ult.
Lucio. Okay, discord.
So we should be calling now. We have Grav and Tire. Grape called that he has Grav. He's been close to Grav for a while now with his high energy. But he doesn't know we have Tire. We're getting space now.
Run. Pressure shield. They have a far now. Discord far. Far's left side. Discord.
I have ult, I'm ulting.
What do we get 2 there? It's not coordinated with the Tire. It's not coordinated with people in position to actually take advantage of it. If we had waited for them to aggress, or if we had used Tire then used Grav to group them up for the Tire, that would have been preferable. Instead, this Grav, I think, is ultimately kind of wasted. Actually baits us a bit more than we want.
Discord.
Lost my energy though. Alright, I got you shielded.
Okay, we have a bunch of people looking up at the Pharah. Which, I mean, she is low now. But it's really rough to hit her.
Alright, if you can have it. Target Steven.
This Tire is huge, if I remember. Yeah.
Nice ult.
Trance seems fine. Secure us the fight.
Baby diva on point. Mercy.
Mercy's down.
She got the res, but
Good cleanup.
very well.
Good shit.
I don't like this
Jeez.
in the hotel.
That works. Let me know. Okay, so
What
Uh,
the-
Slambulance. Do you want to run our own?
You game for Junkrat?
You guys want to do that? Okay.
So this is where my spectating falls a little bit through because I was
so they're
finishing
probably
dinner.
trying Slambulance. Do you want to run our own? We could try.
Slambulance.
I don't know. That's what I've heard everyone call it.
What the
we-
fuck is Slambulance?
So Slambulance or Goats Comp is 3 tanks, 3 supports. You run a Diva, you run a Zarya, you run a Reinhardt for the tanks, and you run a Brigitte, you run a Moira, and you run a Lucio. It's a variation on Quad Tank that was popularized sometime last meta, or last 2 metas. And it's named after this team in Contenders, I think they're Contenders, called Goats, although they weren't the first to run with it. They weren't the first to like invent it essentially, but they won a tournament with it, so they call it Goats Comp. The idea with Goats Comp is you use your health pools and your movement abilities, and increased mobility with Lucio, along with your better heals and pocketing with Moira and Brig, and the stuns of Brig, to just bully the enemy front line endlessly. So the goal of this comp is to get close and then amp speed boost into the enemy front line or vulnerable target and just absolutely crush it. with Reinhardt and Diva and Brig and to some extent Zarya.
Are we running 3 tanks? 2?
The problem with that is that if you never get the engage you want because everyone's set up on high ground, you have to get creative. And you absolutely need speed boost and or amp to close the distance before you lose your resources.
Am I playing Zarya, Diva,
Because you won't have shield for long, you won't have Moira heals forever, and the comp essentially has 0 range. It is forced to be in melee range in order to be effective. So creating situations where you can be in melee range are necessary for the composition.
Needing to pee can actually make you more alert and have higher reaction time.
It does.
So then, fucking harvest that urine, dude.
Never tell me to harvest urine again.
Doesn't it
That
also
sounds so
hurt?
wrong.
What the fuck
Okay.
is this, dude? Am I gonna fucking...
Let's discuss compositions here for a second. I don't know if they'll stay on Widow. I suspect they will, so I'm just going to continue from here. We, as a defender, as the defending team, we seem to be expecting a Reinzara composition, particularly one without a Pharah. We're not running a hit scan, which is fine. Hanzo can be serviceable enough, or you can just concede the Pharah, not the point to Pharah, but concede the air battle. Instead, crush the shield battle and win on the ground before the Pharah is effective, or stall out so long the Pharah that like the push isn't super great. Junkrat really shuts down pushes. You have a grab Hanzo combo with damage boost. You have a defensive ult, and you have Ryan who's event. Like this comp is well put together, either accidentally or intentionally. There is some minor issue that like its range is a little lacking, and it doesn't have sky pressure, but that's honestly like minimal. Every composition has some sort of weakness that can be exploited, and really your goal is just not to hold this point forever, but to win the map. So like, and just hold the point as long as possible. So like, this does a very serviceable job of doing that. If they lose first fight and don't swap to their Pharah, Junkrat Tire will be cycled with like the tank ults to really make it difficult for them to push through. On the other hand, these guys are running a soldier who is kind of pretty bad in this meta right now. As for why, he has real problems getting through a shield in general, or through a diva if they're not even running the shield. Soldier really works well with high ground, but he's been supplanted by both snipers who are just better at range, and his ultimate isn't really that effective. Like, both snipers are basically more mobile than he is, because they get to climb walls or ascend vertically without assistance of a staircase, and they get to kind of harass or get picks from a distance that he can't manage. So thus, he's often relegated to a ground game, but like, if he's on the ground, he's still just a worse Hanzo because he doesn't have the shield break, and his ultimate is garbage compared to Dragon, particularly in Grav. Like, no one is excited about Dragon outside of Grav necessarily, but at least Hanzo will build it ridiculously fast with Storm Arrow and contribute much more without the ultimate than Soldier will. Soldier's best use is high ground maps like Numbani Defense, where he sits back with the healers and drops healing station when they all get dove, and hopes to race his healing versus the damage he can output into tanks. Attacking with Soldier is really, really rough in this meta. They have Widow, which is fine. Widow does have a supplementary DPS to kind of buy additional angles from, so she'll be mostly solo or with the Mercy. If the Mercy ends up going with the Widowmaker, however, there's very, very low sustain for the tanks. Soldier can help augment that, of course, for the attackers, but if the attackers are trying to push forward, then the stationary healing station is not going to do them too many favors. It's once again something that might have been better suited for defense on like a high ground. As it goes, however, Brig Ryan Zarya can be very aggressive, and if you drop shield for a little bit, Soldier can maybe do some work. It's just like Zen would be more punishing, Hanzo would be more punishing, Pharah would buy you more space, Junkrat would provide you more shield pressure, Hanzo would provide you more shield pressure. Soldier's just like, eh.
Pissing
They have a
myself
widow.
too.
If it's a comfort pick, it works,
Got
but
Widow, okay.
She gave me 20
Don't peek her,
energy.
don't peek her, don't peek her.
What we're
Yep.
doing.
It
Okay.
is sterile,
I mean, don't peek her with your head.
Dude, Spice must flow.
right?
Spice must.
alright, they come around,
flow,
set
but
you.
we-
Notice how we're slowly being forced back, essentially, as their shield pressure comes in. We should be looking to absorb right now. We should be looking to drop back to here instead of here. Our healers, who are safely out of cover back here, can't readily support this. And we're kind of starting to angle our shield in a way where, like, our team is no longer behind it. You gotta be careful of that. It's something I've touched in the
Zarya,
past.
just like us. Discord Zarya, personal team down.
We just stay there for a bit. The longer we stay here, the more like the Zarya and Soldier is slowly going to whittle the shield. So we need to look for an opportunity to rest the shield whenever we can. We have a Junkrat flanking, which is fine. It's not an entirely bad decision. You have to worry about the Widowmaker on the high ground, and there's some thought should be given to just using mine and getting in her face and forcing the 1v1. You don't have to do that. And if you lose the 1v1, you can very easily lose a point off of that. Winning the 1v1 will win you this push. Losing that 1v1 might lose you this point. And that's a risk you kind of have to weigh. Alternatively, the Junkrat, since he's not quite able to get things done because they're not pushed in just yet, can rotate back through Hotel and just happily spam them as they linger here in this choke.
Sorry,
Tagging up both my shields.
But we seem fine. The only issue here is that our Rhine shield is a little bit low, and we need to be careful of that.
He's down.
Mine's low.
We get some picks. Seems good.
Left Widow. Somebody go get that.
Okay, we get an early pick. We push it in. That's great. Fantastic.
Don't push up anymore.
Well done. Well done.
Alright.
Ultimate's coming up. They're unlikely to have any, because you won the fight so convincingly. You're likely to have Dragon. You're 50 on Grav. Some discussion would be made. Will we build Grav? Am I saving Dragon for this?
If anyone else is greedy, okay. They're just trying to get shit at this point. Back up.
Yeah.
Widow's up top again.
Yeah, Widow's
If they're
up.
going to give you that shield pressure, though, by all means, spam into it. Natten is in a little bit of trouble here. They don't have the Lucio or the Diva to really punish you for this, and you likely have Mine to leave. But if you use Mine to propel yourself upward, you have to be worried about the Widow, or if you get stunned by the Brig, if you're not keeping track of how close she can be, you can be in a lot of problems.
Nat, watch out.
Yeah, so he needs to back up, but you see the sight line that he had to take right in front of the Widow. That's the problem with that pathing. He builds a lot of ult off of it, so that's his reward, essentially, for doing that, but it is not a risk you like to see. Alright, so we're delaying right now. We don't really need to have our shield up right now. They're not spamming in anything. We can just kind of rest our shield, line of sight, wait for them to come in, and then use our shield to contest point. We're safe to do pretty much whatever you want because they haven't
She's up top.
really
Discord Zarya, far left.
initiated.
Tire?
Discord
Alright.
Zarya, personal down. And
Did we lose our Rhine shield?
her move, so.
She's up
I think
top.
we did.
Discord Zarya, far left.
That bubble doesn't make any sense.
Tire?
Discord Zarya.
We did. We lost our... They haven't touched point and we're down our shield. That's the sort of management that leaves your Reinhardt really dry. So it's not just that you lost shield, because that happens. It's that you lost shield while the enemy team is advancing, while you have no clear path of retreat. You'd like to make it to here, but like you don't really have that luxury because both your Zarya bubble, I think, is down still. And you have a long way to go. While they can just hold shield up and just burn you down with this high charge Zarya and this soldier. They don't have the Discord to like really, really, really punish you, but your Reinhardt is likely dead here if they have any sort of focus whatsoever. However, the saving grace is they're committing to a fight. They use the Zarya bubble. I don't know if they use projected, but we have Tire. As soon as they commit to a fight, like say they even touch point or come through choke, once they come to a side, you want to use Junkrat Tire. Like immediately to just end that fight, win that push, stall out the clock, collect the rest of the members who don't get tired, and just keep cycling your ultimates to delay. So if you use Tire here, then maybe next fight you have Grav combo, and then the fight after that you have Shatter, and then you have Tire again 3 fights from now. And so they're forced to overcome each of those every single time. That should be the goal.
I don't
So you trade here. Yep.
I have my ult. I'm gonna use
Follow me.
it on the point.
Tire is late. Our Mercy looks like she was trying to res, I suppose. So we fall back here, it seems fine. This finally triggers our Tire, which is late, but still within acceptable bounds.
On the point.
That's a good decision. But our Mercy just kind of like wanders out of safety in order to contest. You can give up a couple ticks if you want, just to win it. But we immediately blow 1, 2, 3 ults to do this. Like, if we were going to use, I think we had trance before this, right?
Tire?
No, we don't. We're tired now, but it's not. We have trance now, but it's not going to be in time to save our Zen. Okay. Or save our Reinhardt. Okay.
I have my ult. I'm gonna use it.
And where is he? Just kind of suicides here. Yep. Tire's good. We don't need to. We should not have blown this ultimate. We needed this ultimate for this. They have no way to deal with it. Like, they just straight lose to it. And their Grav isn't a guarantee so long as we have trance. I don't mind the trance here. It's not the greatest, but it'll at least buy you time.
Use it.
What a hilarious Tire. Okay. Then we're gonna clean up the Mercy, I hope. Yeah.
I'm waiting for you.
No, I used mine,
Waiting
but
for you.
I
Go,
get
go,
mine
go.
back fast.
Used a lot of ultimates.
Yeah, this is we should probably.
Me and Death are heading back.
Oh, okay. No, we're just
We're
down
back.
one.
We're
down
back.
one.
Okay. So you're not really discussing what ultimates they have. Turns out they have almost 6, which is probably why you lose this fight soon. We should be looking to initiate upon them with Graviton so we can build the rest of our ultimates back up. We're going to play close or give them some part of points, recontest it with Valkyrie and Graviton and try to swing the fight from there. If we can build Hanzo ult, that'd be great. If we can't, we're sad. Imagine how much stronger the position is for us, where even if they pop like 3 of these fuckers, like you just use 1, 2, and you just wipe them. Like, that's why using that Hanzo ult could be really bad for us here.
Just keep holding this corner. They're not dropping the window. Pressure.
They use the stun.
Shield.
Work on that shield.
Sorry, I'm
We're not giving the space, and so we're kind of just into them. Like, you see how, like, here's 3 people. Here's our Hanzo still in spawn, as far as I can tell, or climbing a wall. Here's our tanks. Our tanks don't have a Mercy beam on them because they're playing so far away from this corner where the Mercy is. Like, I think the Mercy is well positioned right now. I think the Zenyatta and... Is this Natin back here? No, this is... let me back up a second. Take a second.
Just keep holding this corner. They're not dropping the window. Pressure shield.
Work on that shield.
Okay, Natin's coming back. So this is the Junkrat. Here's our Hanzo. Here are 2 supports. They're positioned well, but our tanks are being really aggressive when they don't really need to. Either the entire team should be playing up, like, if we're using this as line of sight, we're in sight of our healers, we have natural cover, we can grab right here and collect, like, or better yet, like right here and collect all 4 of these. But instead we're playing on like the opposite side of where they're coming in. We have no retreat path here. Where are we to go if we get, well, low? Like, we have some bubbles. We don't have we have a healer ult, but it's not enough to really sustain us through an aggression of 6 people. We have nowhere to retreat to. That's the sort of thing you need to think about. We just look split as fuck.
Reinhardt has his
Ryan's
ult.
super low. Ryan is
I
super
got
low.
turned. Yeah.
Discord Zarya. Oh, shit.
Okay, so they pop. They pop 1, 2, 3, 4 ultimates. Okay, we lose this fight. We pop 1. That's fine. We have grab for the retake. We're close-ish to Hanzo ult. We can wait on it. We just should not use Graviton.
Shit.
Just don't use Graviton.
Yeah, I got
Zarya
fucked up
on
with
me.
the
I'm getting
ult.
pushed.
Don't res that.
Oh, Zarya
Oh,
down.
no. We're low. We're down. Lots of people. We're down. At least
Okay, so maybe you can give up 2 ticks here and then recontest later, because you did get a pick kind of late on someone. And they're not really capping point all that fast.
Yeah.
They're likely to prevent you from doing that. This is where I just changed to boat only mode. So I'm not going to be able to see as much.
I just gave field charge.
All right, I'm backing up.
That seems
Yeah.
fine. The decision is to just contest later. Do we all get good spawn?
Widow's up in the window.
We all got good spawn. No.
We all got good spawn. Good communication. We swap off the Junkrat. Let me think about that. We swapped off the Junkrat into double hit scan on King's Row. So the Pharah has like has good aerial cover in streets, but will demand a decent amount of Mercy's time in order to keep up against double hit scan. It's not like the Junkrat is a better Pharah here, in my opinion. Or you could run a Brigitte yourself and run triple support, which means your tanks have better healing than theirs do because they're only running 2 supports, and the soldier's not that great at like fending her off. And your ultimate will be really effective at preventing the one-shot here, and just against soldier in general. So either of those I think would work. Either a Junkrat or a Brigitte would be more effective than the Pharah, but the Pharah could definitely work here. You just have a lot kind of working against you. I've seen worse, but it could also be a problem. So boat mode is red team. Okay, okay.
No allies.
Alright, pressure shield. Widow's top left. Widow's top. She dropped.
Got shattered.
Widow's mid.
I
She's
have
probably
ult.
gonna
I
take
have
high
my
ground.
ult too.
Alright, they have walls for 15
They have
seconds.
sights. Back up the sights.
You don't really need to back up necessarily, but we should have a plan. So the plan right here should be don't peek. We can just wait here at wall. We're not really looking for much in the way of spam because we already have the ultimates we're looking for. Our goal should be as they come across corner, we're just going to use 1 and 2. And we're just going to win the fight. Our goal is to use these ultimates before they use their ultimates. Or in this case, ultimate, to win it, okay? We should know that we can use Trance in Grav because they don't have a combo with it. They don't have a Hanzo of their own. They don't have a Junkrat tire. Okay? So our Trance beats their Grav. They have nothing to beat our Grav combo.
I don't need to back up necessarily.
I got the Widow.
Okay,
Watch
never
yourself,
mind.
man.
Oh,
I have my ult.
Aggress. Go. Go forward.
If you wanna
Forward,
use
forward, forward. We're up 1. Their scariest members down. Push into them.
Alright, they're down 1.
Yeah, I got a good one. Go.
It's late.
Right on point. Right on point. No more ults. No more ults.
Nice.
Okay. A good communication to say no more ults. I don't know if we needed the Graviton. Being already up 1. If anything, I think I would have tried to commit just the Shatter. And the reason why is that for like you can build a Shatter in a Grav pretty easily. And this ultimate is like these 2 ultimates will win you literally any fight. So maybe not use them when you're already advantaged in the fight.
Nice. Okay,
Down.
Not that big of a deal though. That was good transition from playing defensive hero in this corner to we have a pick. Okay, we're going forward. You could have done it a little bit faster on instinct, essentially. As soon as you get that pick, just be like go go go. But good communication and good call to be like fight's over, no more ults, we win this.
Still have shatter.
You know?
Still have
Trans.
good on ults,
That was a
yeah.
hell of an
We're
ult.
getting close
Playing
to
ground this.
Okay,
gate.
okay. So where should we play now? Well, our goal is we have these two ultimates. We have a defensive ultimate, we have an offensive ultimate. Since we're right now basically in control of the map, we're going to use this more or less defensively. If they pop Graviton and we're kind of worried about losing the fight, we'll pop this. We probably don't need it against Visor at all because of the way this map works. You can basically line of sight it or shield it, and we're not really worried about that. You could use it in response to a hammer down to protect the team. Seems good. But mainly we're just looking to play for the shatter and build up with our double spam projectiles. So we're looking to basically play gate because that will force the Widow to essentially have to play from here or here to do anything. And that's really rough positioning for her to take if you know where she's coming from. If you play back on corner, she gets window, she can play out here if she really wants. She can also do like this weird flank and end up behind you. You give her a bit more space to work with. By holding here, you're holding as soon as possible, and you're not giving them access to payload to either line of sight you or to slowly heal them. So for that reason, I like the arch. They can kind of prevent you from using the arch effectively by coming around here and engaging kind of from behind, or coming out through high ground and dropping down on you. But most likely, they're just going to try to run into you. If you take archway, you also give your spammers additional sight lines, because all of this is open right now. So they'll be forced to take a different path.
Yeah, well, and Widow has
Hurry
a
up,
harder time
60.
hitting you. So, okay, guys, back up.
No, you guys are fine.
Back up to like this corner where I'm shooting here.
That's bad. So there's no cover here. Like, yeah, your shield will be a natural extension of the wall, but like half the team will have to play back in here. And retreating to like bookstore here isn't actually a retreat, because you have nowhere to go further from there. You either want to play at corner or at this choke. Anything in between is like not great, because you have additional distance to go to reach natural safety of the map. If that makes sense. You're reliant on the Rhine shield 100% of the time instead of half the time.
What am I stuck on? One of the walls that, Overwatch is
Call
famous
out Widow when you see her move.
My general.
Good call.
They don't have a Widow, they have a Hanzo.
Oh.
We're not
okay.
quite playing the...
for. Watch that.
On top.
Shield up? Oh, good.
Good trance. Maybe a little delayed, but good trance.
Shit.
It seems like you were debating whether or not you needed it. Good trance. Good decision to back away towards the end of your trance to safety.
Bridge is
Fantastic.
Slow. Bridge is slow.
Team bubble down. T-score grind team.
Good communication on
Get him.
that shit. Hans is behind.
That's Zara.
Discorded.
Hanzo behind. No,
Where?
I don't think you need to peek him right now. The only way I see them coming ahead right now is if Boatmo dies and then they take a fight 5v6. So to that end, we can just kind of let our team clean them up. But I don't blame you for trying to fight them anyway. Like, it's not really... doesn't really make a difference. Very, very nitpicky there. They're consistently swapping their DPS, which is actually fucking them, because they're losing ult economy. They just swapped 2 people. Alright, we still have Shatter, which is fine. We're halfway to drag grav combo. We could use just Dragon if we want to separate them. Save the rest of this shit. The world is our oyster right now.
so far.
Pull off that.
We have ult economy on them.
Free now?
Got a Hanzo all
Yeah.
coming in. Nope.
We're kind of playing the proper corner. I like it. Like it. Ryan is stepping up to choke, and then he's retreating back behind it when he feels like his shield is getting too much pressure. We're looking good.
I'm gonna save my ult for you.
This is generally good positioning. We have the healers playing behind bookstore, so they're peeking in and out of this wall, which is fantastic. Our Ryan is giving a little bit too much space here, but like generally this positioning is good, and tough to break.
About 69.
Oh.
And since we gave them Arch without contest, we are forced to kind of fight here now. So our healers are going to rotate further back to the next corner, essentially, while our tanks hold this corner. Remember, we're looking to initiate on them before they initiate on us, essentially, and just rotate our ultimates to delay them as long as possible. So we're giving them a little bit of payload for free, but if we win the fight, then it's fine. If we find an opportunity, we're good. And we are buying time for the Farah to get additional, essentially trash damage in.
Reinhardt might have his ult.
Oh, Hanzo,
Okay,
top
probably
left.
does.
Hanzo window, okay. Ryan's looking at ult, I think.
Yeah,
Yep.
he has his ult.
He's been ulting as soon as his shield breaks.
Okay, you see the problem there, though? The payload was essentially at choke, and then we let it get to here, and we actually are now kind of finding our fight on, like, the second corner of Streets phase, instead of, like, first corner or the choke where it could have been. So we could have, even if we were to all get shattered here, we would have gotten shattered way earlier and then had more time to recontest, essentially. Buying time is great, so long as the payload isn't moving. It's kind of the best way to put it. So despite them only having, like, despite being, like, even in ults that were ready for this fight, we let them initiate upon us after using our Reinhardt's shield resource for no gain. Like, we didn't get anything from this trade of losing our shield.
Don't have trans.
We cancel reload with an orb placement
Behind them.
and someone who doesn't seem to need it. But good counter shatter.
Freeze low, Discord. Freeze
res.
that.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Discord.
Of course he's resing behind the shield.
Discord green.
Reinhardt's
Discord
low.
gone. Discord gone.
Nice,
Okay,
nice.
next. Discord mercy.
Okay.
Sorry, it's
You should have seen that a couple went towards Mega, but
personal down. She's low. Push up on that.
nice.
Nice. Okay,
Does
back.
McCree die?
Hanzo behind.
Where's the McCree?
Somebody left side.
There's a Hanzo.
I'm doing well.
I don't wanna.
Hanzo.
McCree going main.
Nice.
Okay, nice.
Okay, so boat mode, your goal should now be this. You want to take aggressive sightlines to spam down them and build this last 10%. We have combo, which is going to win us this next fight. We should look to initiate with this before they come across. We once again have the opportunity to hold at choke since we won the fight cleanly and decisively. We can hold there, we can hold first corner. I would not hold second corner. And honestly, first corner too is kind of throwing. They don't have the DPS to pressure us off of that. We have good space control, and we should honestly just use it.
Nice.
Shit. He's low. He's
Great,
low.
If we don't want to use grab combo, we can instead just hold choke, and as they come in, like, we give a little bit of space, and then we barrage literally as they come through choke with proper bubble. That could also work, but we need to discuss these things.
Okay, good call out.
I have my ult.
That's their only swap. Yep.
Allied and two.
We're falling back to second.
I have my ult as well.
Don't do that. Push in.
Oh yeah, we can combo.
Push in. Push in. We lose our Hanzo. That's fine. We don't need him. We have barrage. Like, we're still fine. We just need to initiate.
So,
Press Q. Press Q. Press Q.
Use your ult whenever you can.
uh-oh.
Hanzo ult.
Press Q. Press Q. Press Q. Press Q.
Alright, come through. Right on point.
Push up.
One more ult.
We eventually pressed Q, but it took them pressing 2 Qs and possibly swinging the fight with them before we initiated. It ends up working in our favor this time. But it's dangerous. Against a better coordinated team, this could very well lose you the game.
Good job.
Or at least the point, you know?
Hanzo behind again. Hanzo got me. Healer's down. Get this Hanzo.
Healer down.
He's down.
Okay.
Okay.
Got
Guys,
him
careful.
flames
You
right.
have no healers. Get health packs. Get
Make
health packs. You
space.
have no healers.
Good call. Good call. Letting people know the status of your spawns.
Get back quick.
If you need.
So, grab health packs, maybe give a little bit of cart. In fact, I would probably have the team just all regroup with you at third point. Just entrance to third point, just out of line of sight, and we'll push up and we'll contest again.
Give up card space to hold the point.
Excellent call. Excellent call. Team won't do it, but it's a good strategy.
Allied.
I'm pretty sure that Ryan's
I'm
got
still
shatter.
not back yet. You have
Ryan does have shatter. That's a good call.
Ryan's got shatter, so be careful. I got it.
I got the Hanzo. I got the Hanzo.
Alright, so what we could do now, if you're in this situation, is you can try to barrage behind them, force them to turn their Rhine shield, and then shatter them. It's cheeky. and it requires your forward to be in position to like survive for a little bit. You're likely going to win this as is because you're already up a major DPS and you have some very good ultimates. The only thing that turns that is Shatter, so you guys got to be wary of it.
Hanzo.
Or if it lasts long enough for Grav.
You have to push out. You have to push out. You have to push out.
Nice, nice.
There we go. We're good.
Push up. This is it. Okay, get on him.
This is it. Good comms.
All right,
Good comms, guys.
Yeah, me too.
All right,
Alright.
all right, quick pee break. Hey, tell them because you're in charge.
Yeah.
Alright. So King's Row. Let me recall attack real quick. For defense first point, we didn't sort of fall back to safe positions. We didn't have a good path or retreat. We could have done better cycling our ultimates consistently, and we over-ulted one fight to compensate for our down numbers, which ended up costing us the fight after that. But then we saw in Street's phase, we really picked it up. We had like a much better understanding of where we were looking to hold. We had great communication. We just weren't talking necessarily about what ult combos we were looking to use and what ult combos the enemy team was going to bring to the table. In general, though, we were communicating who was alive, where positioning was, who was discorded, when we ulted. The only thing is we gave up a little bit of position, and that's something I would like to work on. Just pick before a fight where you want that fight to happen, if you're the defenders, essentially there, and just make sure that they don't get anything for free, essentially. If you're going to use Rhine Shield, make sure you're gaining something for that loss of Rhine Shield health. If you're going to give them distance on the payload, make sure you're getting something for that. You can get additional spam. If your composition will benefit from that, you can get time to regroup is probably the biggest reason to give up payload distance. Other than that, just like if you're defending a payload map, you can lose 9 fights. It doesn't matter. You just have to make sure the payload doesn't move very far. Very good communication on Street's phase though. Really enjoyed that. As for attack, we took a very passive approach, and we didn't take like proper angles and the space that was given to us. So a few times we were able to force them back to pocket on first point, but we didn't adequately take advantage of it, essentially, and force our way into point. So we only contested point twice. The second time came very, very late into the time bank we had allotted. It ended up working because we had enough ultimates banked at that point. But you should be looking to get as many attempts at capturing and pushing a payload as possible. Then from then on out, we lost the first fight into Streets from some poor positioning, and they ended up ulting to secure it. We won a couple back. I think our biggest issue is that we were kind of almost afraid to initiate before they did. We saw it there a little bit on Streets too, where like if you have Grav combo, just like don't wait, just use it as soon as they come into view. If you have Tire, just as soon as they come into choke, just like blast them. You know, you don't have to essentially trade ultimates because there's a giant advantage in initiating first, in having the priority of dictating how the game is played, essentially, and how the fights will devolve from here. If that makes any sense. I wasn't impressed with Route 66. I was legitimately impressed with Street's defense here on King's Row. If you can figure out what was working there, if you can polish up where we're contesting the point for that, and work that into your communications and planning, and work on both ultimates the enemy is going to bring to the table and what we're planning to use this fight either to mitigate that or before that they get to execute their plan, you guys will be very effective. Good luck.